Okay, welcome back everybody. This is CJ, your local friendly tech addict, and I just want to do a quick video. If you do happen to take apart your BV9500Pro, and that's honestly part of the reason I did this series of videos was, somebody may want to take theirs apart for whatever reason, maybe replacing hardware like I'm doing, or maybe you want to see the insides. Whatever the case may be, as you take it apart, you're going to have these little buttons. The insides of the buttons are going to come out. And by the way, before I even get to that, I am not a fan at all. I'm pleased with the phone, but I'm not a fan of how that camera mounts because there is no way really to get in there. You're going to need a special tool to push that connector down. And it's one of those micro connectors that if you get it off by a little bit, you're going to wind up damaging the connector. So be very careful when you peel the phone back apart, because I had it all back together. Well, at least I had the main part of it back into the shell, and I realized I left the buttons out. So I had to take it all back out again. And that camera does fit absolutely perfectly in there. So much so, in fact, that every time you have to take it out, you're risking damaging the camera. So make absolutely certain when you're putting your phone back together that you go through it step by step. Now, here's the thing. You have 3 buttons on one side and 1 button on the other side. Do the 3 on the low side first, okay? So let me I'll use a compass that I just happen to have lying around here. Except that's not going to work because it keeps moving. All right, well, let me find something else I can use. That'll work. So what you need is something to get the phone up on its side just enough that gravity will help us rather than irritate us. Excuse me, that was a hiccup. I'm using my forceps, but if you've got, of course that's not going to work. This will work. We'll do it from an angle here. And of course, when you're putting them in, there are 2 sides to the button. One is flatter with a square kind of molded into it, and the other has a concavity with a pin molded into it. The pin goes toward the circuit board, and you got to make sure that you get it in there right, of course. How else would you do it, right? Alright, so now that one's in there. I'm going to go ahead and do the third one. We're going to get those parts in on that side first. And then we'll come back and do the other side later, because we can pry this part up after it's been installed and insert the 4th button more easily than if we were to try to do them all at one time. So I'm going to try to come around the camera here without disturbing too much, because of the angle I've got it at is not conducive to doing this kind of work. And the other thing is, you want to be careful of these wiper contacts going to your SMA pin, your SMA connector, excuse me. Also, you may wind up with this piece right here. Thankfully, I've stopped biting my nails, And I'm just going to push this right in, gently so. And I can feel a little bit of resistance over here. That's probably because the camera has not seated. Oh, look at that. Actually, it has. So let me finagle a little bit. I'm just going to apply a little bit of sideways pressure in a couple of directions. Oh, you know what it is? It's those spring contacts right there. So that's actually by design. That's a good thing. Okay. Because I know the camera is in, and the camera is the only thing that would have held it up. So I trust that that's in there good. Those buttons are where they should be. So now I'm going to do this fourth button. I'm going to lift this out just a little. I keep checking because I'm worried if I pull it too far I'm going to detach the camera. And I won't know if the camera has been detached unless and until I get it all back together and find out that the camera's not working. And if that happens, I'm telling you now, I will be livid. Unfortunately, there's just nothing I can do about it. And if I do run into that problem, I've got to get this where I can get some light. I'm sorry. But if I do run into that problem, I will certainly do yet another video and try to discuss how I work around it to save you all some time. Oh, perfect. Haha. The button went in. Okay. So here's hoping that the camera did not disconnect while I had that apart. I'm going to lay this back down. All four of the buttons are where they belong. And I'm going to go back to screwing all of these screws back into where they belong. Oops. Already lost it. Look at that. Now, one of the benefits of doing the card drawing the way that I did is if I draw the pieces as I go, I know what the last piece was that I took out. It was this one. So once I put this one back together, if I have any missing screw holes, or excuse me, if I have any screw holes that are obviously screw holes, but I'm missing the screw, I know that it had to be another part that lays on top of it that goes into that screw hole and holds both pieces together to the case. Now I am missing a screw. I know it's up here somewhere. Or did I? You know what? I might have gone ahead and pushed it into the paper. I don't remember. I had a loose one lying around. Maybe, you know what? Maybe that one was on a circuit board and I already screwed it back in. See, and that's the problem, is I did not document every little thing that I did. And when you don't document every little thing that you do, it's called a shortcut. And a shortcut will cost you time in the future. I had an argument with my boss at work about shortcuts because he says that I take them all the time. And I'm really not. I know what a shortcut is, and I know when I'm taking them, and I don't typically take them at work. At work, I'm simply trying to work smarter rather than harder. I've been complimented on thinking outside of the box, that apparently I do it on a normal basis, a regular basis. You know, it's like my Tuesday, right? But my boss and I, we get along pretty well, but there are times his definition of things and my definition of things are slightly different, but I digress. So I've got these back in, right? And I know that I've got them back in because my card is empty. So I'm going to set it to the side. Now I've got 2 cards left. The only thing really left to put in is the battery. And I've got a card for that. I really need a more professional studio. So I've also, on this card, I've got 3 missing. Well, those are right there, and right there. Because I drew that on there. So I know that those go together, and I knew that the battery was separate from the other part. I've already got the other part back in. So now, let me get my shadows out of the way here. I'm going to go ahead and take my little coaxial cable, which I'm thinking there's just an antenna for the, that's got to be what it is the LTE antenna is in the base, or one of the GSM antennas is in the base. I don't know. I saw a diagram showing the antenna locations, and I think there are at least 1 or 2 in the base. And I gotta say, I am glad to have my fingernails somehow I had a cat hair in there. Imagine that. She's a pretty kitty, though. She's got a black and white coat. And we're coming into the summer months, so she's shedding her winter coat now. Not that any of you really care. But once you get this very, 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 very skinny coax in place, it'll be hiding behind that green part there. Right? There we go. Now we get the light on it. So it hides behind that, out of the way of the battery. Oh, this is the one that doesn't do that. Battery. Here we are. Derp, right in front of me. Now I'm going to put the battery in. I'm going to screw it down, but I am not going to connect it yet. That's this connector right here. I'm not going to connect the battery because I don't want the phone to turn on yet. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 screws to do. So I'll go ahead and screw them in. Okay, so I've got all of those screws in. My card is blank. I'm going to set the card aside and connect the motherboard to the daughter card down here. Making sure I get it lined up well. I can feel the notch go in before I push on it. And I don't remember where I had that little piece of conductive fabric tape, but the fact is there's nothing over here for it to conduct to. So I really don't know what its purpose was. Anything that needs to be grounded already is. Yeah, no. So next we need to connect the screen. Yeah, we're coming down to it, people. I'll connect the screen. Feel it line up, make sure it's centered. Okay, it's got a housing around it, so it's one of those, it's almost like a shielded connector. I hate these things because you never know if you got it right until you snap it in, and then it's either right or you just messed up, son. Alright, so I've got everything connected except the battery. I'm Go ahead and plug the battery in now. Battery is connected. Now for the test, we're going to see if I've got it correct. Now, before I do the final button up with the sides, I want to make sure my camera works. Right? I want to make sure I've got it connected. Otherwise, I got to take 8 more screws out. Not to mention the effort of getting the sides in there with the little metal button inserts. And again, those of you who follow me know that the well, you got the first 2 of them. But I am getting low on space again. Those of you who follow me know that the cracks in the glass are just the screen protector. Look at that. Camera works. LED works. Front-facing camera works. Apparently my Wi-Fi works because I got a couple of new emails. I got an upcoming alarm. Wi-Fi is working. Bluetooth registers, but I don't have anything connected yet. I'm going to say, make sure, yep, I've still got my gallery. And yeah. So looks like everything's good. I'm going to go ahead and turn the screen off. Actually, I'm going to turn the whole phone off. And then I'm going to button up everything. Real quick though, make sure before you put all of the case back together, make sure that that gasket is in place all the way around. In fact, it's probably a good idea to make sure it's in place before you start putting your cards back into the case and your battery in, because it's going to be more difficult to align it if you need to with all of that stuff in and everything connected than it would be, of course, before you put all of that stuff back in. And I'm just kind of squeezing it together. There's no real snap or click or anything. I mean, I've got a little bit of one right there on the bottom. You know, that clicked. I'm sure you heard it, but that's the only place where it did that. And so now it's just a matter of putting on the sides, putting in the, actually I'll put that screw in first, because that's going to hold it all together. That holds the, oh crud, and I got to go back to my Torx bit now. Now, when you're screwing this screw back in, and even for those of you who are not planning on taking yours apart, if you loosen this screw, or when you put it back in, just leave it loose. You don't want to tighten it all the way down. The reason for that is if you're like me, see, I walk around with the antenna on the device because it makes an excellent handle, for one thing. Pulling it out of my back pocket by the antenna is just too easy. And I don't want this cover to be bent like this permanently, so I want instead to swing it around out of the way. That way I can leave my antenna installed permanently, but this does not get permanently deformed, so I can maintain, if I want to, I can go ahead and close it back up later on with the antenna uninstalled. But that's it for this video, because I'm already out of space and I need to go ahead and finish uploading the others. So there's nothing to it. 4 screws, a couple of buttons on each panel, and then I'm done. I got the back case to put back on and my SIM card to put back in, and then I'm done. So until next time, this has been, I guess I'll add this to the other 5 in the playlist. This will be number 6 then, of the 5-part series on the teardown and rebuild of a Blackview BV9500Pro. So until next time, 73s, and I'll see you then. This is CJ, and it's been a pleasure. Thanks for watching.